We have both politically and financially contributed to the reforms, to the dialogue. We have worked very closely with SADC, with the facilitator, Justice Moseneke and his team, with the government, with civil society, and I'm quite happy to. I was quite happy to see that this process has been brought to a successful conclusion. The NRA has been inaugurated in February. Then things have been suspended due to the pandemic.
Because of COVID.
But we learned that it's going to pick up again, and I think this is very important because not much time is left. If I calculate it correctly, it's 15 months until the dissolution of Parliament before the electoral campaign.
Right.
And these 15 months are important 15 months. The Kingdom of Lesotho, its political elite, its society should not lose time and make good use of it so that some of the critical reforms will be completed in terms of the legislative procedures. Because of course, in fact, that we should distinguish between three phases of the reforms. The first one is the dialogue.
Right.
That has been completed. The second one is the first part of the implementation, which is passing legislation.
Right.
Some of the recommendations of the second plenary will require only administrative regulations.
Changes, yeah.
They're perhaps the easiest and quickest that can be put into practice. Others will require ordinary legislation, and others will require constitutional amendments.
Right.
And perhaps there is a bit of a confusion that I see in the debate. People are talking about constitutional reforms and about constitution as a sector, as one of these 7 sectors. In reality, if you look at the recommendations of the second plenary, you will see that certain recommendations that require constitutional amendments go through various sectors. Some refer to the security sector, others refer to the judiciary, others refer to the parliament. So constitutional reform, or what is mentioned under constitutional reform, in fact is cross-cutting.
Yeah.
It cuts across several of these sectors. And my advice would be that one or several constitutional lawyers should look at the recommendations of the second plenary and identify those provisions which require constitutional amendments,
right,
and make proposals in cooperation with the NRA and the government and the parliament, and then propose all these amendments as a package to the parliament,
right,
to look at them. And if the parliament is of the view that a referendum would be useful because the parliament believes that this is such a profound change of the country's constitution, then such a referendum should, in my view, take place at the same time as the elections. That would be the easiest and the cheapest way.
And the cheapest way to do it. Yeah, most succinct way to do it.
Yeah. For us, the reforms are, of course, important because they are about accountability, about human rights, about the rule of law. And these are values which we try to promote in our relations with our partner countries.
That's a great answer.
That's a very intelligent doctor answer.
Ah, is that what it was?
That's what it is.
Oh, okay. Ambassador Manahl, that is, I really like that. I'm trying to ruminate on it as well. And if you'll permit me, I'm going to jump from area to area. Prior to COVID-19, the European Union had looked at various different ways of assisting us in not just stimulating the economy, but in stimulating livelihoods. One such is agriculture and agribusiness. Can you tell us about the EU's relationship with us in that sphere? I know it's an area of great interest for many of our followers. Our demographic is largely 18 to let's call it 40. So those are the people who are listening to you across the globe, by the way. So you might even have Austrian listeners if you want to
Well, who knows? Now, agriculture, we do contribute to agriculture indirectly. We have not chosen agriculture as one sector because we are under instruction from our headquarters to limit our interventions into not more than 3 sectors in each country.
Right.
Because otherwise it becomes difficult to manage, and spreading out into too many sectors, of course, it is more administrative work, and the impact is
less impact.
is
That's
smaller.
right. Yeah.
And as I explained, we have chosen the sectors water, energy, and governance.
Right.
Governance being, of course, fairly broadly spread. But indirectly, we contribute to the development of agriculture in Lesotho through 2 things. First, the integrated catchment management project that I referred to, preservation of the water table, management of pastoral areas, and but also through bulk water supply, because it is not only to provide water for the families, for the individual households, but it should also provide water for business as a potential. And I think it's generally recognized that if Lesotho wants to transform its agricultural sector from subsistence farming or livestock keeping, which is still predominant in many areas, to commercial farming, you have to go to irrigation.
Yeah.
Very true.
For 2 reasons. One, because if you supply commercial markets, you have to have a sustained production and supply, but also as a consequence of climate change. In the last couple of years, we have seen erratic rainfalls. Lesotho has suffered a drought last year, and this, of course, is not the first one, and I'm afraid it will probably not be the last one.
Yeah.
So, if you want to do commercial agriculture in these climatic conditions and with the uncertainty that climate change brings for the whole world, not only for Lesotho, you need to use irrigation and to build that up, and we hope that we can contribute to that. A third aspect which is under discussion, and I hesitate to mention it because we don't like to talk about things before we have signed and approved them.
Yeah. But you can break it here on the big time.
I can
you can give us an exclusive.
I can mention that we are in advanced stage of discussion with the LNDC and with the government for a loan offer from the European Investment Bank of 15 million euro, which would help enterprises through concessional loans, ideally 0 interest loans, to recover from the impact of COVID-19. And of course that would also apply to potentially to agricultural businesses, which could use this money to restructure, reform, and go into commercial agriculture.
0 interest loan is a win. Everybody's down for that.
I am definitely down for that. And I have a question still related to the water issue. Now, I came across a headline, I think it was last week, that said that in about a year or 2 years, it could be that Lesotho has to then buy water from South Africa because of, you know, how our reserves are sitting. Are these allegations potentially true? Do we have to start looking seriously into keeping more to ourselves versus giving most of it away, or are we still okay? Are we safe?
I haven't seen these estimates, but I would say God forbid, because I don't think the South Africans have any water to sell to anybody. They
have brown water.
They are short of water in many areas, several areas. It was Cape Town a couple of years ago, 2 years ago if I remember well, and recently the Eastern Cape. South Africa suffers from the same problems as Lesotho, from erratic rainfalls due to climate change, and of course with a growing population and hopefully in the near future again a growing economy, the need for water will grow. And there is a good reason why they buy it from Lesotho now, because they need it, and I don't think they have much water to sell to anybody. But as I said, I'm not privy to these scientific studies. What I do hope is that Lesotho will be able to produce not only enough water for its own people, but also for exporting it. It's exporting it now to South Africa. I know that Botswana has expressed an interest in buying water as well. And we believe that this should be possible. And we have had discussions with the government here and tentative discussions with the government in South Africa about what we call water diplomacy. We have quite some experience in that area because, of course, Europe is a very fragmented continent with many countries on a relatively small geographic space where almost all the catchment areas of the big rivers go across several boundaries and where management and sharing of water has to be negotiated. We believe that it would be worthwhile initiating or rather developing this because it has been initiated with the Orasecom, Orange Senku River Basin organization, but it can be further developed. And the reason why I'm saying this is the following. Lesotho exports water to South Africa from the dams, and South Africa pays by volume of intake.
Right.
But my colleagues, the experts, tell me that the amount of water that actually comes out of the tap in Gauteng is 30 to 40% only of what flows
moved,
from the intake. It's because a lot gets lost in the transport. It goes through the tunnel and then it goes into a canal and river system.
Right.
And there some is taken out by farmers who use it for irrigation. Some seeps into the ground, some evaporates, and then of course in the distribution in Gauteng also water gets lost. And if we can use this water diplomacy to work with all the countries concerned, in this case Lesotho and South Africa, but perhaps also at a later stage including Botswana, which has expressed an interest in increasing the water efficiency, then there should be enough water for everybody. There is also the fact that, to my knowledge, at present Gauteng does not recycle any water.
Yes.
No.
And we know that it requires infrastructure investment, but there is a considerable scope in saving water through recycling. I know, for example, that Israel, which is a country that has difficult relations with its neighbors for the reason we know, and it's a country which is a semi-desert in heart. Israel is recycling about 70% of its water.
I want that.
And we don't expect 70% in South Africa in the very near future. But that is a debate that needs to start here in Lesotho in South Africa, because if populations grow, economies grow, more water is needed, and eventually there won't be enough for everybody. But we believe there is enough if we start now, in the very near future, in talking about water efficiency, about water recycling. Then there will be enough for everybody, and it's actually a win-win situation, because the South Africans will get more out of the water they pay, and Lesotho will be able to export perhaps not only to South Africa but in the future also to Botswana.
And still have access for themselves.
Of course.
Thursdays are the best days because we get the best guests. We are hanging out with Ambassador Christian Manahl, the head of the EU delegation in Lesotho. Let's go and pay some bills, and when we come back we will